Welcome to Power Lunch Live. It's good to be with you here for our sort of post-election edition of Power Lunch Live. Now, the point of the show is to bring today's thought leaders, best-selling authors, people who are doing amazing work in the world that we can learn from. That's the whole point of why we do the show. Now, we broadcast on LinkedIn Live. We broadcast on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, probably some other things I'm missing. But you can actually interact with us on those platforms. We monitor those during the show. So if you have a question of our guest, of me, please do ask so that we can get to those questions. If you like the program, give it a like or share so that we can, your network can benefit from the program, and we can also grow our audience just a little bit. Now, today I've got Cliff Oxford here on the program. We're going to discuss his third book, Redneck Reverie, The Rationale for the Trump Phenomenon, which combines data-driven insights and real-life experiences to explain why Donald Trump's election in 2016, to explain why that happened, how that happened, and the intersection with world cultures across America. He's lived the life among both the country and the elite, and Cliff has really exact insights needed to not only help explain why we got to where we are in America today, but to provide guidance on the road moving forward. Cliff, welcome, man. I'm glad you're here to sort of help us understand all this and bring some attention to why we are where we are.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I look forward to it. And this is the book couldn't have been more, the book and the interview couldn't be more timely, I guess. It's fascinating. It's frustrating, but it's very familiar. It's a very divided country.
Why is that? I mean, why are we? Because let's face it. I mean, Donald Trump is brash. I don't know anybody that supports him that wouldn't say this. He's brash. He's unorthodox. He's rude. I mean, I grew up in the South. His manners, I would have been in. They wouldn't have stood in my house. So why do we put up with him?
Well, the rationale of the Trump phenomenon, a lot of people at first glance thinks it's a pro-Trump book, and it's anything but a pro-Trump book. It explains how we got to Trump. But looking forward, it's certainly my solutions don't have much to do with Trump. So the book, instead of just writing off Trump as a showboat, a racist, I really wanted to find out, how did we get here, where people would pull the voting lever for a reality TV host.
Right.
And among all the, bankruptcies, I knew some of the businesses that he screwed out of dollars. Wouldn't that just automatically eliminate you? If I were running from my office and you said, Cliff Oxford, he just didn't pay all of his people.
Look, I
probably wouldn't last 30 minutes.
Look, if you wouldn't tolerate him as the principal of your kid's school. You wouldn't tolerate him as your CEO of your company.
But Rhett, he got a lot of votes last night.
Yeah. And
the Democrats need to figure out why, but they're kind of in the movie what George Clooney was in, Oh Brother Art Thou. He said Clooney at one time they were running from the chain gangs. He says, we're in a tight spot. This is what we call a tight spot. And the Democrats are in a tight spot that they can't address these issues that created Trump because their financial contributors to their campaigns wouldn't allow that. They're not going to address wage income. They're not going to address why in the world do we have a minimum wage at the federal level at, I guess it's $7 or $8 an hour. Why would we have signed any trade agreement, which, by the way, I'm a big global trader. I love trade. But we can't. Why would a Democratic Party sign a trade agreement with no environmental standards and says, India, China, you can do what you want to do? Because that's kind of how they figured out how they could fund those campaigns. The Democrats were in kind of serious problems in the late 80s because those people weren't funding their campaigns, and they figured out how to do that and how to get it funded, but it just compromised them. So the Trump is there because of 45 years of where it was kind of an economic coup that Wall Street did to redistribute wealth from people who were making $20 an hour, like my dad. My dad was making $20 an hour 20 years ago, and today my cousins make $8 and a half an hour. Now, you get to $12 an hour times millions of jobs every day by the hour. You're in the consulting business, I believe. You know how that adds up, paid to bill time. So this is what created Trump. It was 45 years of getting stepped on. And they're like, you know what? If nothing else, we can stick it to the guys who stuck it to us. And that created the Trump phenomenon in a nutshell.
Is it so? Okay. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, and I get that intuitively. I mean, there's a lot of anger. I mean, this is. I mean, that's what you see when you see. I mean, is that right? Are we angry?
Well, you know what created certainly the folks who created who voted for Trump, those renegade voters I write in the book. Yes, that would be an accurate description, that they're angry because they see their children hooked on drugs, opioids. They see their grandchildren making less money than they did. And, you know, they're angry because they really only wanted one thing. I mean, I grew up in Okefenokee Swamp in southern Georgia, and these people want a job and to be left alone. And you know, Truman, Roosevelt, Kennedy, Johnson, they kind of stuck with that pact social contract. You vote Democrat, we'll keep you a job. And it worked, and they didn't want to be involved in politics and civics. They want to be left alone, and they want to go do a job. And you took the job from them. So that means they have nothing.
Yeah.
In their world, they don't get to go down the street and find another job.
Well, look, you look across the South, you look across the Rust Belt, you look across, you know, parts of America where you're upside down in your house now, right? Because of the way the economy is, right? So you lose your job. It's not like you can pick up and load the station wagon up and move, right? You're stuck.
Right, you're stuck. You're stuck, and in the book I said, you know, this my fellow renegades have some liability too. They were apolitical. They did not want to be involved, and they were sitting ducks. And you know, so they bear some responsibility too here, but that's just their culture. Mm-hmm. Their culture is, I don't want to be involved in that. That's for quote rich people to do. I don't. And you know what? In a democracy, it doesn't work that way. You have to be involved. That's a part of a democracy. You have to be educated about the issues. You have to be involved. So that's what happened to them. So after they get put on their rear ends, you know, you have people like, and I'm sure she's a great lady, but Nancy Pelosi, who they don't have a clue, Chuck Schumer, and how to communicate with these people. Because what they do, they talk about white privilege, and obviously there's white privilege. I mean, white men we've had a good, long, sorry history of it. But you say white privilege when you just put people from $20 an hour to $8 an hour, and you start talking about white privilege, they go, white privilege my ass. There's no white privilege in the trailer park.
That's right.
So, the Democrats are very lucky that these people were apolitical and didn't want to be involved until Trump came along. If they would have been involved, every one of them had been thrown out of office in 1996.
Mm-hmm.
Right after that. But this is how we got here, an apolitical culture with a highly political process that relied on Wall Street.
Now, is the Republican Party home, or is this a new party, or is this?
Good question. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. It is not home at all. Okay. Not at all. They wouldn't be voting for any of those 16 candidates that ran against Trump. So I write in the book, this is a group that could be courted and had. The Democrats could win them back over. That's the natural home for them. But see, Bernie's problem, he's identified a lot of the right issues. But Bernie says, let me come and be part of this revolution. They don't want to be part of a revolution. Yeah. He's chasing them away when he says that. That's not what they want. They got to get back to what Roosevelt told them. Vote Democrat, even if it's a yellow dog.
Yeah.
And I'll get you a job.
A job. You can go to church on Sundays. You can go to the lake on Saturdays.
Go to the lake on Saturdays.
Go to the game on Saturday. You can go to the college football game, or you can live a good life.
Right? I wrote in my book. These people are wanting kind of a minimal life. They just want a house on a slab instead of wheels, and they want a house. I mean, they want to have enough money to pay the light bill and have some fun.
And I mean, I think it goes beyond that too. I think they want their kids to be okay, right? They want a good school. They want things to work, right? They want. I believe people want those basic things.
Absolutely, that's true, Rhett, and that's like my parents. I have seen, though, I got to be honest with you, with the disaffected white class and what has happened over the 45 years, not so much now. And that's a tragedy. You know what I mean? And I talk about going from what we called clean sunshine. I couldn't even wear my shirt tail out.
No. No way.
I couldn't wear we came to the table, our hair was combed and we wore ties, that was kind of the country sunshine, clean country living. That does not exist today. If it does, only in a minuscule way.
Yeah.
That's a tragedy. And that's going to take some generations to get back. That's not an overnight switch.
So you talk about big checks and jobs, the path to restore hope and dignity. What do you mean by that? I mean, I think it's a little bit about what you were just talking about, but
it's just what I was talking about. I mean, if it's not going to be a government tax cut. It's not going to be a rural committee at the state legislature. It's not going to be a government program. I mean, what you got to do is go in there and, it's another version of the New Deal. It's another version of the New Deal. You're going to have to put these people to work. And this will be an extraordinary creative president, extraordinary creative leader to do this. And that's the way you can get it back on track.
And it's really, to me, it's not about voting, whether you vote Democratic or Republican. To me, this is a renaissance. This is about bringing America back to being that shining light on the hill, right? To me, it's about, we used to have the best infrastructure in the world. We used to have the best standard of living in the world. Yes. We used to have the best education system in the world. I mean, and there was a belief in education. There was a belief in that in it just to me we are not that you're right. It takes a visionary leader to think about that, but that's what it's going to take for that economic revival. That's what's going to take. We used to make stuff. We used to be the country that innovated. We were the, and it seems like it's going to take a lot of thinking about, and we actually need that, right? Because we need that infrastructure built. We need that broadband, and we need that internet infrastructure around the country. We need,
renewable energy could be,
could
be great. But, the thing about it is, you're going to have to keep, I hate to say it, it's going to be government driven, but you have to keep the government bureaucracy out of it. Because, you can't, corruption and all that stuff. It's going to, I actually was on another show and they asked me, give me one specific. And I said, what we could do if we had a $12 minimum wage, we could have a true up. The government trues it up to $20 for 2 years. And then after 2 years, the company keeps you at 20 or they let you go. Now that's believing in people. You believe after 2 years, somebody really interested in work could convince somebody I'm worth $20 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be that kind of idea that pulls this off, but you're going to have a hit on, from 1970 to 1981, the stock market went up 770 points. It goes up 770 points in a day now. It can go up much. And they had to fix that problem. Wall Street had to fix that problem. And they said the only way to fix that problem is have a global payroll competition and bring wages down toward China. And so, there's repercussions. If you go out and start doing that, I think you're going to have pushback from Wall Street, but it's going to come to that. And the real loss was, believe it or not, if Donald Trump would have been interested in reading and been interested in looking at solving problems and doing the hard work, he might have been the person to pull this off.
Yeah. But
he never, beyond marketing, he really never had his mind on these folks.
No, he's too transactional. He didn't have the force.
That's a great word for him. He's way too transactional, and this is extraordinarily creative and consultative.
Yeah.
And
no, he's not the guy.
He's not the guy. He's not the guy for it. So, all the Democrats tell me, why'd you write a pro-Trump book? And I go, well, you hadn't read the book if you think it's pro-Trump. But what I was saying in the title, there is a rationale. And I think we make a good case on the rationale of how he was created.
What you talk about a financial virus from the elites. What do you mean?
Well, in light of the COVID virus that kind of took over, the financial virus was they bled those economies out. They knew those jobs were going away. And, and that was the virus was trade agreements with no standards.
Mm.
I think like I said, I'm an entrepreneur. I think global trade is good. But when you read those agreements, Rhett, and I've read them, I read them for the book, I was astounded at what the Democrats signed. And then say you're for, global warming, climate change. No, you're not. No, you're not. If you were, you would. We wouldn't sign those agreements. We'd tell China, we're not going to sign this agreement.
Yeah.
We had a chance to bring them up toward us, but that would have made less money. So, It's a situation where the country, as you well know, Franklin at the Constitutional Convention was not real keen on the republic. He didn't think it would last. And we've done a great job with it. But, you think about, we had the right leaders at the right time come along: Lincoln, Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt. And we just hadn't had that.
In a long time. Yeah.
In a long time. We just hadn't had that the right leader at the right time.
What, you go back to that big check. How big would that have to be? Would it have to be sort of equal to the New Deal?
The New Deal in Rhett, and I was surprised at this, the New Deal in even current dollars terms, we only spent about $2 billion.
Really?
Yes. I mean, I was shocked. And, the hit, when I was studying it, Franklin Roosevelt would call his treasury every night and then say, how much did you have to print today? He was so worried about printing money.
Mm-hmm.
And today they just moved decimal points.
Yeah, that's.
And, you can imagine Roosevelt sitting there really at the printing press, looking at the dollars coming off, going, I'm going to bankrupt the country.
Yeah.
What I figure, if you look at it's going to be, to get this job done, it would be the cost of all the money we spent on stimulus, too big to fail, and the Fed's backing Wall Street. Feds are spending $2 billion an hour. That's funny. Roosevelt spent $2 billion on the New Deal, and we're spending $2 billion an hour right now to keep the stock market propped up.
So, so what? 10%, probably 10% of GDP.
Yeah, that's right. About 10 to 12% of GDP is what we'd have to do. I've become more optimistic about this since, we did the stimulus and the world didn't fall apart. Now, are we going to have to pay for the stimulus later? Yeah. But it's better to burn down the house later than now. I mean, and you might can even put out the fire, So, so I think it would be a great investment of writing big checks and it would create so much spirit. You know what I mean? Really, of the jobs coming back and getting people back excited about being an American. I mean, it would be a really great opportunity.
I mean, look what happened, though. I mean, you created things like the interstate roads. I mean, some of that stuff was so transformative for America.
Yes.
Right.
This would be the same way. And if you could create renewable energy, whatever you created, I mean, this could be a win-win-win.
And I think everybody across, I think everybody benefits in it. If you look, we talk about now a lot right now about equity and racial justice and these issues. But I mean, it helps people across the board in all communities. I mean, to have these kind of jobs, to have this kind of infrastructure built. I mean, it would just be it'd be amazing to see the benefit for the United States.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do we get out of this culture of individualism? Or does it actually help us get to where we want to go?
Individualism, I think, was a great value when it was a level playing field and before you basically had a political system bought off, before you had too big to fail kind of thing. So I think individualism was great, and that was a great American value, but you can't have it both ways. You can't say individualism and then go bail out JP Morgan.
Right. No, right.
And and they said they're too big to fail. I mean, today my bank is Robinhood. You know, if big banks failed, there would just be a replacement. That's the great value of capitalism. A better market alternative would appear. So too big to fail was a total con, and probably was the final nail in the coffin to create Donald Trump.
Okay.
I really think that topped off the 45 years.
Yeah.
You know, you guys stepped on our necks for 45 years, and the first time you get in trouble by your own doing, there's happens to be a big bonus system. So I would say that would do it. So you know, I think we got to go toward now of more of what we talked about with what I call the true up system, where you got capitalism and government get together and do positive things. You know, I don't think that's so much socialism, but it's reformed capitalism, because capitalism is a great system as long as it's fair and there's no special privileges.
Mm-hmm. We can compete on an even playing field.
You compete on an even playing field. It's the best system, and I think it's the greatest system that's brought more people out of poverty. But as Benjamin Franklin was worried about, it can buy off the politic.
Absolutely.
It can buy off the republic. And
you see it now. I mean, that's clear.
And you know, I think for a lot of years, even up into really the mid 70s, there was still money part of politics, but there was a belief, let's kind of do what's for the common good. Yeah. I think we were young enough in our experience that we still had that notion of let's do it for the common good.
Yeah.
And that changed.
Yeah. Yeah. Cliff, man, this has been enlightening. Thank you so much for being on the program today. This is a great conversation, and I think one that we all should be having to understand each other. I mean, I think that's another thing that we're not doing enough, is to understand why we are where we are, and we're not having those conversations, and maybe you help people understand just a little bit more where we are and why. And I appreciate that. Yeah, and if anybody wants to buy the book, it's on Amazon, Redneck Reverie, and you know, it goes into also my being raised in the country, and to understand the culture of the people there. So if you Google Redneck Reverie, everybody down home calls it Riviera, Redneck Riviera. That's close enough, but it's Reverie, Reverie. And I think it does a job of explaining to each other, like you just said, where we can understand each other. You know, I mean, my final comment, my number one comment from people that's read the book, Cliff, I just didn't know. We had no idea that this was going on. Yeah. That's been a great experience to be able to share that. So, Rhett, thanks for having me, and let's talk soon, okay? Yeah. Everybody, Cliff Oxford, go to Amazon. We're going to put the link to the book in the notes here at the bottom of the program right after we get off the air. It's called A Redneck Reverie, a Rationale for the Trump Phenomenon. Cliff, thank you for being on the program. Thank you for spending some time with us here on Power Lunch Live, sort of a post-election, trying to figure it out edition. And thank you. You'll have a good day. You guys have a good day. We'll see you tomorrow at noon Eastern time for our regular scheduled show. And have a great day.